the ERP Doctors with Dan Aldridge and Sam Gupta, powered by Insight Jam.
Hi, I'm Dan Aldridge and from Partners to Innovate, and I am here with top analyst Sam Gupta from Elevate IQ. We're having conversations about ERP software, enterprise technologies, and digital transformation in the industry. And so I want to first introduce Sam, or have Sam introduce himself, and we will go through some current event questions. Our friends at Solutions Review here have done some nice research on top issues of this week. So that's what we'll be doing every week. We'll be reviewing top issues. We'll also be talking about topics of interest to ourselves, and concluding with questions and lots of back and forth. Sam and I are friends from a long time ago, and we work together as well. So that's what we'll be doing today. So Sam, why don't you introduce yourself, and then I will hit you with the first question.
Happy to. First of all, honored to share the stage with you. You keep calling top analyst, super flattered there, I guess. As well as, now I am probably ERP Doctor as well. That was your title. So, super honored there as well. Once again, Sam Gupta, principal at Elevate IQ. Elevate IQ is the independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm. We help our clients with the change management, enterprise transformation strategy, etc. I have been in that space for roughly 20 years, covering many different spaces, ERP, CRM, etc. So over to you, Dan.
Okay. All right. So the first thing there's a company called Cognizant, which is a big, traditionally they've been a big services firm. They're into lots of different areas, ERP and a number of other service, enterprise software type of services. And they've just announced a collaboration with an up-and-coming company called ServiceNow. And the idea is to enhance what they call WorkNext, which is a modern workplace services, and to use AI and automation to help with employee services, essentially. They do other things. ServiceNow does other things like customer service, that sort of thing. But this is more focused on employees.
Yeah, so very interesting. So then I'm going to offer my commentary, and then obviously I'm looking to learn from you as well. What is your perspective, on this story? So number one, ServiceNow, and we just did a coverage on them, on WBS Rocks as well. I don't know if you have had a chance to catch on that. So I'll give you.
Yep, I'm a big follower.
I will give you some background in ServiceNow, where ServiceNow is, and obviously the ServiceNow and generative AI marriage is very interesting as well. Okay, so I'll provide some colors there too. And then finally, overall, why Cognizant is really interested in this, and maybe provide some colors into what else we might expect from the industry. So number one, ServiceNow, then, as you might know, that they started, or their origin was primarily more into the IT service management category. That's what they were known for. Okay, so it's a very interesting category because they are almost like a BPM. Okay, so BPM meaning in the traditional days, if you look at the business process management category, that was very, very, very bloated the way it came across. The real difference between, for example, let's say if you look at iPaaS, and in your case, you spend a lot of time with Infor, so you are looking at something like Infor OS, right? So Infor OS is going to be iPaaS. Typically, iPaaSes are designed for system-to-system interaction. But when you are going to have system plus user interaction, that's where something like ServiceNow is going to be handy. So when I say user interaction, these could be, let's say you have companies that are going to have very large call centers, or they are going to have very workflow-centric collaboration, whether you are going to have more from the customer perspective, employee perspective, or from the vendor perspective. Anything and everything that touches either internal user or external user, that's where ServiceNow is really fit. Yesterday's announcement, that is very consistent with this particular story that I was reading. That is also related to ServiceNow. They are trying to get into the CRM space. Okay, so this is all happening all at the same time. They are really becoming a threat for Salesforce. Okay, so this is a big movement in the market because right now, if you look at especially the enterprise CRM category, the only player that we have in the market is probably Salesforce. Okay, and now ServiceNow is positioning themselves as CRM. Traditionally, their workflow was that they were more into slightly more workflow automation, technical centric tool, but they never sort of positioned themselves as the CRM player. So now in this particular story, it's very interesting. Number one, okay, how generative AI is going to play overall when you look at generative AI and the use cases category of CRM and from the ServiceNow perspective as well, right? So when you look at the generative AI, number one thing that it is really, really good at is it's going to be conversational workflows. But now you are going to be asking, okay, how does it fit in this whole CRM category, I guess? So there are two or three things. Number one is going to be that conversational flow. So number one, when you are looking at changing the interfaces, okay? Changing the interfaces, meaning traditionally, if you look at any of the CRM interfaces, if it is going to be a very complex process, it was very hard for users to remember all of these screens and prompts, and it becomes very, very, very difficult. That's why one of the challenges then, and you can relate with this, right? ERP looks very frightening for the users. The reason why it looks frightening for the users is because they have to remember so much. And if they are not practicing on a daily basis, if you have not simplified their workflows, it becomes a hard deal for them, right? Even CRM, when you look at the enterprise level workload, even CRMs could become very bloated as well. So that's where your generative AI is probably going to help in exploring all of these workflows. So that is number one. Number two is going to be when you have data. Now, generative AI is really good in creating the narratives. So these are some of the use cases that we are going to see. And obviously, Cognizant, they're really, really deep into the technology space. So I'm personally very excited in terms of what is going to come out of this particular story. So I don't know. I mean, I spoke a lot there. So maybe you share your thoughts in terms of what was your understanding of the article. Where do you see this going? And then I can provide some more.
Yeah, I didn't even think of it from the perspective of a threat for Salesforce or CRM. I was more thinking of it in internal help desk, IT, those kinds of situations in internal, like employee self-service portals, things like that it could really help out with that. But now that you've put this little CRM thing in my mind, I can see that might be the play. On the Cognizant, it's very interesting with Cognizant because they also do field service and things like that, which also is a ServiceNow play, is to do field service and customer service as well. So that kind of bleeds a little bit into CRM. But I think Cognizant might be positioning themselves. They're interestingly, they're also a partner of Salesforce. So they work with Salesforce.
Yeah, so just to be clear, Cognizant is one of the largest system integrators out there. So obviously they are going to be present in every single ecosystem. One more clarification overall, this particular story, I guess that was more focused on the work category. That is my understanding. So this story might not be involved in the CRM category, but I am providing more of the overarching picture where ServiceNow is going, what they are going to do in the future. So that is very exciting overall. And they are probably going to be working with a lot of different system integrators in the market who are going to have deep technical expertise to be able to explore these scenarios, because at this point of time, it's very, very, very hard to forecast where the generative AI is going to be really powerful. What kind of use cases are we going to see in the CRM market, in the ERP market, Dan?
Yeah, and using the generative AI as a sort of a co-pilot, right? Sitting right next to the customer service interaction you're having, and there might be a chat bot coming in or texts or anything like that. The generative AI can sort of analyze all of that information and maybe put out some text or some responses. So it becomes like kind of more of an interactive thing with the customer or with the employee in this case. The employee is the customer in this case, right? It's internal. It's focused internal, this work next thing. I had kind of a follow-up question on that. Do you think that Gen AI is going to be a detriment to any platform providers that don't have it?
It's a very interesting question and comment, I guess. Okay. anytime, whenever you have either new interface or new technology, I don't know if that completely replaces something. Okay. In general, the way it works is you are probably going to come up with very new workflows that we have not seen before. Okay. So this is probably going to be a new interface. In fact, as of today, if you look at the use cases for generative AI, it's not that. I mean, some people are arguing that, this is probably going to replace the search engine. Okay. Yes, there is a possibility that could happen. But right now, if you look at the use case, people are using Google, but they are also augmenting it with the conversational search if they have to do that. Now, if Google incorporates the generative AI as part of their platform, obviously what is going to happen is, then people are going to get the best of both worlds in one interface. So I don't know if people are still going to go back to your, the real ChatGPT interface. But there's a possibility that the way Google is going to render the information could be very different from how your ChatGPT is, or any other ChatGPT-like interfaces are going to render the information. So in general, if you look at the way any of the interfaces, any interfaces, any channels, the new channels that, or new technologies that are upcoming, they are always going to be augmenting something. We are going to see a lot more newer interactions, newer workflows, newer use cases, newer markets. So I don't know if it is necessarily detrimental to any of the platforms that are not completely utilizing it. We are going to get interesting use cases, but as such, if people are not, exploring them right now, maybe after some time, once that becomes mainstream, because then market will demand that, and then they have to get into it.
Yeah, I almost think that the market is demanding it, and it's almost not an option at this point, right? You see all the major ERP players, SAP has Joule, Infor has Coleman, Microsoft has Copilot. It's all in there, off to the right. It's ubiquitous, right? It's becoming any more. I think it's customers will demand it to the point that it's not an option. I think all of these companies, ServiceNow has it, and they're bringing it to this work next thing, but I think it's almost necessary.
Yeah. So one thing that I would like, just minor clarification there. So when you say, market is demanding, yes, there is a demand in the market. People are using it. But so far, at least in my understanding, I don't know, you might differ in your position, Dan, but so far as my understanding goes, I don't think people are willing to pay for ChatGPT. So when I say whether there is a real demand for a product, that means somebody is making some sort of money. Right now, obviously, the reason why everybody is investing in money in the hope of making money in the future. Okay, Microsoft is pouring billions and billions of dollars because they are able to develop the technology, and based on that technology, they are going to be launching a lot of products. All those 7 major BI companies that are hot on Wall Street at this point of time, investors are investing money in the hope that they are going to make some money. But at this point of time, we don't know whether there is a real demand. In my mind, when I say real demand, that has to be translatable in dollars.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It, as a separate entity, right, is demand for ChatGPT. But I was thinking more in terms of as enterprise software goes, having an AI component is almost ubiquitous. That's mainly what I was saying. I mean, as a competitive position against somebody else like an ERP that doesn't have it, it's detrimental versus one that does. That's kind of what I was more driving at. But yeah, I see your point on ChatGPT. I mean, people don't want to pay, and it's not just a part of something else they're getting. It's a separate thing, whereas there are many AI vendors now, right, and springing up every day. And ChatGPT, and specifically, has made a very tight alliance with Microsoft. That's why they go back and forth, right? What his name? Sam Altman went over there to Microsoft, and then he came back. He was like, "Oh, wait, we didn't want it to, go all the way." But they're making a lot of investment in it, and I think it's starting to show, and I think it's very exciting.
So I'm actually going to have a question on that, and that is going to be related to ERP, I guess, right? So and this is coming from a post that I saw on LinkedIn from Infor. I don't know who was the developer, but they really opened my eyes, because if you remember, I think the previous show that we had done, I don't think I was as receptive, at least from the ERP perspective. I've done at least 2 or 3 different conversations now. Like, I'm not too sure about this, but right now, once I've seen that, now I am realizing the potential, of generative AI. So the question for you is going to be that, okay, based on these scenarios, so number one thing that we have seen in this video was for Infor M3, where the way you would converse with your ERP is you are literally going to type your screen, and then, your ERP is going to get the screen, and then you are probably managing your workflow, clicking, remembering all of those clicks that you have to remember, all of those functions. But here you are literally chatting. Exactly,
chatting,
literally
yeah.
like chatting, where you are saying, hey, what, create me a sales order or something. That was powerful. That was powerful for users.
Yeah, it's very powerful.
So now the question that,
that's part of the
exactly. The question for you is going to be, okay, based on this interface, okay, do you feel that customers are going to pay extra for the ERP license just for this feature set?
So the way I understand it, that's called Coleman. The AI capability is called Coleman, and then there's RPA as well, robotic process automation. But it is part of what they call the Infor OS operating service. So it's all, they're buying it when they buy the ERP licenses. They get it. I don't think that they have to pay separate for it.
So
I'll call my Infor.
In this particular case, I don't know whether this was the demo
case.
from a partner or from Infor, but they were trying to showcase the capabilities on top of Infor M3. So and I don't know, see if this is going to be bundled as part of Infor OS or this is the separate offering. But whatever I was seeing, it was really exciting. Is the point I'm trying to make, I guess.
It is very exciting, and that whole Infor OS is very exciting to me because you mentioned iPaaS, the integration platform as a service. That's also part of the OS.
Yep.
So when you get the OS, you get all of these things with the RPA and everything in it, which is nice. I think it's nice that they bundle all that together, and it gives them the capability to kind of cross ERPs in a way. And I'll talk at the end, our second segment here. I want to talk about that particular issue. But I think that is exciting that they're bundling all that together, and they're saying, no, we don't need a separate license. We don't need a separate, extra additional charge for that capability above the OS. Okay, Sam, why don't we take a quick break right now, and we'll come back with another segment.
Solutions Review is inviting you to join InsightJam.com. What started a few years ago as a social media event to celebrate enterprise technology has now grown into an always-on tech community with live events, discussions, videos, vendor showcases, and industry resources. Our vetted roster of experts, thought leaders, and analysts are sharing tips and tricks daily. So if you're interested in getting involved, join the long list of companies and brands who have already participated by visiting InsightJam.com today. Now back to the show.
Hello, everyone. This is the second segment. And then in this one, I'm going to start with you with the digital transformation best practices. And I don't know if you have gone through any sort of stories this week, if you want to share, what has gone through in that, and if you have come across any sort of best practices that you might be able to share with the audience. Then over to you.
Yeah. So this week, I had some conversations with a company called Vandenberg. And they are a company that has, there's a composable ERP. You've heard this term, composable ERP. It's composable architecture. And it's, if you look at what it provides, it basically provides a way to build applications into Google Cloud on top of even on-premise ERP systems, which I think is a very exciting development, right? Because a lot of people are, let's say, they're facing recent news, right? SAP ECC needs to convert to S/4HANA Cloud by the end of 2027, and there's a lot of consternation over that, and some cost cutting that's going on and everything. This composable ERP process allows you to basically create these applications now and then base it on top of an on-premise system. So it's just having conversations about that, about the prospect of customers being able to leave their on-premise system or on-premise systems. As we know, you might have SAP, ECC at corporate, for example, because it's a very good corporate system. Maybe at plants, you might have some other ERP like a BON or a Need4LN or something like that in the various manufacturing plants, let's say. But they're on-premise. They're various versions. They're heavily customized as a rule, right? Over the last 5 to 15 years.
Yep.
Right. So having something like this is a possibility, and I think a very exciting possibility to create these applications now and sort of prioritize them in a sense that you kind of pull out the differentiators, right? Because over time, let's say in an SAP ECC system, it may be running great, and they may be sort of forced into an S/4HANA, right? They're not ready to go. Maybe the functionality is not what it used to be, or in ECC or whatever. Not everything translated, and it's a process. It's a painful process, right? So they're looking for some sort of help with the digital transformation that will say, what do we do in the interim? How do we prioritize the customizations that we have and sort of break them off, take them to the cloud, take them to the Google Cloud, create applications that might be, on your phone, right? On your laptop, on your tablet, whatever. Modern applications, create these applications so we can have them now and have users start to use them.
Okay.
What do you think about that?
Very
prospect?
interesting, very interesting. So I'm going to tee up this conversation with the previous conversation, which was about ServiceNow. So if you look at the overarching position of ServiceNow, I mean, technically speaking, they are trying to do very similar things, what you just described, to be completely honest, okay? They are really trying to create that layer on top of your ERP, regardless of whether you are going to be in on-prem or you are going to be in 3 major cloud providers or somebody else's data center. Nobody, anything is possible. So ServiceNow is trying to do this. Now, this section is about best practice. So in your case, let's say when you are trying to narrate this story, are you saying that composable ERP or the use case that you described is going to be the best practice that companies should follow? And if they should follow, which are going to be the right use cases for the companies for this scenario? I assume that, they are still going to replace the ERP if they have to, but if they cannot, then this probably would make sense then, right?
Yes. So it is a best practice. It's a best practice because, you can create those applications, and those applications, it doesn't matter the underlying on-premise ERP.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a best practice to sort of figure out what are your differentiators, right? Because over time you built customizations. What did you build customizations for? Maybe standard procedures work there. Maybe for automation, maybe for workflow, maybe for whatever reason, but the vast majority of them were built for differentiating you versus your competitors, right? So you built them for that reason. So when the best practice is to take an inventory of all the customizations, right? Say that's a report, use BI. That's, an automation, use workflow. That's, a database kind of thing. Use some other tool, iPaaS or whatever. So go through this rationalization process and pick out the things that really need to be done. And the best practice is to do them now using applications. You're not trying to replace your ERP. You're picking and choosing, right? You're picking and choosing. You're taking the low-hanging fruit. You're taking the things that need to be taken up now in order for you to do your business well. And you have a long-term plan to go to the cloud. That's also, I sell cloud ERP, right? I'm not against cloud ERP. What I am trying to do is create a story that says this is the way you supplement your on-premise ERP. Give yourself some time to breathe. Maybe a year or two, and take out those things that you need to do the most. That's the best practice that I would say.
Okay, amazing. So I'm going to provide some commentary from my positioning perspective in terms of how I think, and then you can probably provide your assessment, okay? So from my perspective, you mentioned that a lot of these customizations are going to be differentiators. That could be true in some cases that they are providing competitive differentiation. In general, in my mind, technology is very rarely a differentiator. Okay, technology is supposed to be the enabler. The differentiator comes from the way you are going to be process your transactions, the way you are going to execute your business processes. That's where your real differentiation comes. Okay. In most cases, when you say these customizations, they are either result of the broken processes, broken data models, or they could be because in the on-prem world, it was easy to customize. So let's just customize, guys, for fun. Okay. And these customizations, a lot of times, they were done by our friends in IT. Okay. And they had very little understanding of the business. They did it because business asked, but business did not have real expertise and the experience in streamlining the business processes. They were doing this because that's the way it has always been done, right? So that's why they were doing that. And now they have automated those broken processes. Now the whole idea of cloud ERP is to streamline a lot of that, because you don't have as much flexibility with cloud. Now people don't like that because now they are not able to do what they were able to do in the on-prem world. So in your experience and in your mind, Dan, when you look at this one, so do you still feel that, taking everything that companies have today to cloud is a better idea, or should they be vetting these processes before they can figure out, okay, what needs to be on the cloud? And when you are looking at this hybrid architecture, I guess.
Right. They should be vetting. Absolutely should be vetting, right? Because that engage process, the customization, rationalization, if you will, is just one part of that, right? You got data, cleaning up data, which is necessary for master data management. It's necessary for feeding the new system, right? You don't want to put dirty data into the new system. You also don't want to train your AI on dirty data, right? Because that causes hallucinations. That causes all these problems that LLMs have, right? So you want to clean up the data. Then you also want to rationalize the processes. So you want to go with a process. So we have this. It's called a business process catalog, right? So, and it's based on the vertical industry too, right? And you've done a lot of work in this area, which is great work, by the way. Like all your automotive and your A&D and all these ratings that you do to break it down by vertical, because if you have a vertical product, that's what you want to go in with, right? That's what I would recommend, best practice, right? To go with a vertical solution. That, and then use the business process catalogs to go through all those processes and rationalize those processes and say, oh, by the way, this is a workflow like doing a PO, doing the receipt, scanning an invoice, matching and approving the invoice, making the payment. This is RPM or RPA is great for this process, right? So you go, when you're doing that business process rationalization, right? You're also saying this is an opportunity for workflow. This is an opportunity for automation, right? So that's the best practice that I would say is as you said, exactly what you said is business processes are the things that are the differentiators. This is how you bring those business processes forward into the new system. And this is how you design workflows that some of which can be in that composable layer, because it's like Gardner says, they call it pace layer approach. So you do your systems of differentiation, you customize in there, you build composable applications in there, right? Not in your core system. So you look for those opportunities as well. And you say, this is a differentiator, either in terms of a process or sometimes in terms of technology, but you're right. It's not the technology that's the differentiator, because everybody has the same technology, right? It's what you do with it.
Yeah, so very interesting. So let's talk about some more best practices, I guess, and when you talk about business process rationalization, I guess, so in your experience, you have seen this for the last, 25, 30 years, I guess, and you have seen crazy scenarios.
Long
right?
time.
Crazy scenarios of business processes.
I'm a lot older than you. You've got all that.
This
hair,
is all gel.
So
I have a lot of gray, Dan. You cannot see it. If you need quality gel, I have a lot of recommendations for you. Okay, so let's talk about business process, rationalization. And in that case, when we talk about this particular concept, sometimes people are going to feel that, it's really rationalized, but probably it is not. Okay, and we know as ERP consultants, and you are going to have people, they are going to feel that, anybody can implement an ERP, even if they might not have as many cycles under their belt, and they're going to feel that, how hard could it be? Let's just rationalize based on our understanding, based on our business model, because we are going to know about our own business a lot more than any of the consultants who we have to teach, about the business, and then they are probably going to rationalize. So in this particular example, let's say if you go back to your history and some of the crazy scenarios that you have seen from the business process perspective, and some of the best practices that you might be able to draw from that, so that, if the listeners are willing to learn how to do this appropriately, any specific examples of business process rationalization from your client engagements that you have seen, if you have seen some crazy modeling of processes where they were doing some crazy things. I'll give you some example story if you like. Okay, so in one of the cases,
give me an
in this
example.
particular cases, one of the customers, okay, it was really funny, okay, because I had never seen this before. This was really odd, and they were proud of what they have done, to be completely honest, okay. So this was a distributor, and in their case, they were saying, hey, you know what, I have been running this business for the last 10 years, not 10 years, 40 years, I believe, in their case. So what they had done is, and this is a very unique process because they probably didn't have as much accounting background, the way accounting is supposed to be done, okay? So in their case, what they were doing is, they were doing the invoice first and then sales order next. Can you visualize?
Okay.
That's crazy, right? For an ERP consultant, like, how do you do that? Because that's not even business. That's not how trade is supposed to work, right? So they were very proud of it, and they were very proud of their custom component, okay, that they had built. In fact, they had branded it, okay? They had a real branding, and they were really confident that they were going to sell that. Can you believe this? Okay, and we were trying to coach them that.
Oh, sell it outside.
Exactly. And they had this idea that, you know what, we are going to be next Amazon. We are going to be next Amazon. We are going to sell this component, because what Amazon did is, Amazon did very different, right? They created this whole web services for themselves, and then they sold it to the world. That's what we are going to do. But they were not willing to admit that the problem was really from their side. Okay, so this is the kind of examples that I'm talking about, where you have the cases of business process rationalization, but in this particular case, they have really modeled it because they just didn't believe, the consultants, they didn't believe the standard, ERP community, they didn't believe in supply chain, they didn't believe in accounting, I guess, and they want to bypass all of that. And these are small businesses, right? So they are not necessarily getting audited, I guess. If somebody's auditing, even in their case, what is going to happen is they are only looking at the macro view. They are not necessarily looking at the micro view, how these transactions are being processed. So they are never going to get caught. So they always feel that, hey, I have been running this business for last 40 years, so there is nothing fundamentally wrong about that. So these are some of the examples that I'm talking about. Have you seen something super crazy in your experience from the engagements where it was completely off and these guys felt that, no, these were business processes?
Yeah, I have. So it's in the area of configuration, and I won't tell what company, but they had a mainframe, and they were doing configuration of these vehicles on their mainframe. And it's essentially a make to order business. It's relatively, it's automotive, so it's relatively complex in that there's regulations and things like that were going on. So I get it. They had done it on their mainframe, but instead of using a tool, and maybe this is only because it was several years back, that maybe the tool wasn't in its form that it needed to be to handle this really complicated logic. But I was like, why don't you use configure price quote? Why don't you use CPQ? Because it not only can you build in all the lists of options and constraints, logic, and all of that stuff, it also spits out a bill of material and a routing, and it allows you to create production order or a sales order really coming out of that, which then becomes a production order or whatever. But use an off-the-shelf tool that's already integrated, like a CPQ. And in this case, it was Infor, and CPQ is really good. Is actually, you kind of rated it very well. But the idea of using a CPQ tool for a make-to-order business that's a make-to-order manufacturer is a great idea. And anybody who would say, oh, our mainframe takes care of that or whatever is, and then we manually enter the order coming out of, you get a configuration with the parts and stuff out of it, and then manually enter the bill of material and all of that stuff into the ERP, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, so we'll do one more, short question, and then we can probably go for the break for the next segment. So Dan, for you, the question is going to be,
Okay.
You were talking about CPQ, and in general, the CPQ could be a major lift for any companies, especially if their SKUs and BOMs, they are going to be all over the place. Okay, so in your experience, let's say if you talk about the best practices of implementing CPQ, somebody who does not know how CPQ works, somebody who does not have as much experience with data modeling, what do they need to do to implement CPQ-centric business?
Well, you got to work with a CPQ consultant on this, and basically you need somebody, an engineer, some combination of engineer and production person to say, these are the features, these are the options, these are the part numbers, these are the bills and routings that we want to spit out, basically, and to design the logic. The biggest thing with the CPQ tool is not the parts or anything like that. It's not the drawings, because the drawings can come in from PLM or whatever. The biggest thing is the constraint logic, right? To say, if you choose this feature or this attribute, you got the following options, only those following options, right? And then it becomes sort of like a question and answer game that an order entry person could follow. But it's that logic, it's that constraint logic, which I guess comes from engineers, but sitting with a CPQ consultant.
Okay, so amazing insights. I think, we can probably go on for hours just on this particular topic, and we'll cover that in the next segments. But for now, we are going to take a break and going to come back with another segment.
Want more Insight Jam? Follow us on Instagram for exclusive content like a daily dose of best practices and buying advice from industry experts and leading solution providers. Or subscribe to our YouTube channel for long-form highlights from our expert panel discussions. And if you prefer to listen, please rate and review the Insight Jam podcast on Apple, Spotify, or Google. The Solutions Review team is hard at work collecting the best enterprise technology information from around the globe, so don't miss out. Now, let's get back to the show.
I wanted to get to a couple questions here with Sam. I wanted to start with one that it's sort of a very controversial article that was published this week from a friend of mine. Paul Coetser is his name. He goes by the SAP Whisperer. So he is an SAP expert, one of the top in the world, actually. And he specializes in SAP ECC to S/4HANA conversions. And he wrote an article that was talking about basically with AI, he says, his thesis was, with AI, why is ERP even needed? Which seemed a very interesting topic, a great article. He's a super writer, and it's a very controversial piece, but here's a quote from it. He says, now, if AI can do everything quicker and with better results, it begs the question, why isn't ERP even needed if you have a data set and the processing power and nuance to interrogate it? Why pay for an ERP at all? Which would seem to be kind of him torpedoing his own business model.
So very interesting perspective. And I don't know, I mean, sometimes the articles are written just to gain publicity, and that's completely okay. I completely appreciate that, okay? And I don't know what was the real intent of this article. Was he being funny, or, is it a real position? And I don't know, Dan, what is your position on the article? Do you believe it? Do you not believe it? Do you want to share first, or do you want me to go first?
Sure. I'll share real quick, and then I'll give it to you. So my perspective on it is, he was trying to create
Yeah,
controversy.
and that's okay game, I guess, right? In media.
Yeah, for the most part. But he brings up some very interesting points because AI, obviously, Gen AI can write code. We know that. It writes very good code, very, virtually error-free code if it's prompted correctly. But ERP is a massive thing, right? He mentioned database. He said, well, SAP, Oracle, they have their own databases. Why don't we just put it all on open source, like Odoo or something, or Odoo, or however it's pronounced? Does that replace HANA? Does that for SAP? Does that replace Oracle database for Oracle ERP Cloud? And I don't think it does at all. I mean, you're basically, ERP is a very complicated system that has developed over 25, 30 years, right? It's been built. AI is not going to come along and rewrite an ERP system right away. Does it have potential to rewrite certain parts of an ERP? Yes, sure. Is that going to obsolete SAP S/4HANA? No, not overnight. That's for sure. I think never, because it's so much code, millions of lines of code written by humans, right? And AI is not going to rewrite that overnight. But it is a very interesting idea that AI could sort of render your experience, your user experience in an ERP system on the fly, kind of, and have a co-pilot sitting there that is a ChatGPT or something like that, other than the one that's in the proprietary big ERP system. It's a very interesting idea. Practically, I think it could be 10, 15, 20 years before anything like that could happen.
Yeah, so very interesting perspective. Overarchingly speaking, I agree with your assessment, and I'm going to provide some elemental understanding, I guess, in terms of how AI works and how ERP works, and that might help people understand, whether this is going to happen or not. Okay, so overall, if you look at AI, what AI is really good at, AI is really good at procedural things. Okay, it is not good at strategic things. Okay, AI cannot make decisions for you. AI may be able to build a narrative based on whatever you are going to feed it to it. But right now, as of today, there might be a possibility that AI may become more intelligent than humans, but that is not happening. Okay, because AI is an algorithm, it is always going to be really good at procedural things. Now, when you look at ERP and code versus ERP argument, that is just mind-blowing and fascinating for me. Because for ERP, as you correctly pointed out, anybody can write code. But when you look at the foundation of ERP, which is your database, the way your data is structured and the way it is correlated. And for each business, that data is so unique that each ERP implementation is going to be unique. Now, understanding that data as of today, in 2024, even for humans, that is not possible. Okay, if you go to any company out there, any company, okay, if you ask them who understands 100% of the data of this company, no one in the company. Okay, 50% of the people, they don't. Because then I'll give you a very specific example. For example, let's say if I'm typing this data in an ERP system that is not controlled, and I am typing a company called 3M. Okay, I could type as 3M. The other person is going to type it as 3M Inc. And now, if you have created these two instances, if somebody is familiar with 3M, they might know, okay, maybe this is a duplicate record or whatever. But that is not always possible, because there is so much happening in the industry. Companies are going through M&A cycles. There's just so much happening. Okay, this is just one example of the master data. Likewise, you are going to have so many different variables that are going to create this whole model of the ERP. Now, if humans cannot understand, how is AI going to understand all of this? Okay, that's not going to be possible. AI's play is going to be when you have to understand this data. It cannot fix your model. What it can do is it can probably provide visibility into your model. That's where AI is really good at. It can probably converse, but if you are going to ask, hey, ChatGPT, can you optimize my ERP installation? That's not happening. Okay, that's not going to happen. And ERP, the fundamental purpose of ERP was always to process your transactions. And when you have to process these transactions in the financial controlled manner, that's a much heavier lift. AI is not designed to do that. Okay, so this is not happening. I mean, that's my perspective. In my eyes,
I was going to say, I mean, something insanely complicated. I think it doesn't deal with complexity. Like, what's the intent of MRP, for instance, right? AI is not going to rewrite your MRP engine overnight, right? It's just not going to do it. So what it will do, and what is exciting, and this is kind of a corollary to what we were talking about with the composable ERP, is that it will enhance your efficiency and your workflows and provide predictive capability to say, if you're entering an invoice, let's say, and then it can look at the AR balance, and they have a customer dashboard, let's say, that presents itself, and it can look at the buying, receipt history of that customer. Is that a good customer or a bad customer? Look at the aging, look at the balance, things like that. It can do things like that. So that is very exciting. So it's aptly named Copilot, I think, because it is sitting out here to the right. It is allowing you to do extra things and efficiencies, and it can write code in some cases, and it may help with some customization or whatever, but it's only a Copilot at this point. And anybody that's going to be replaced, because I know there is fear, and you even see some numbers. I've been seeing some statistics, tech companies, a lot of companies laying off lots of people. Now they say, I wanted to redirect resources that were paying humans to developing AI, for instance. Now, does that mean that AI replaced them in their jobs? No, it doesn't mean that, but costs that would have gone to their salaries are now paying for AI capabilities, developing AI capabilities that people want, right? So, I mean, we're rapidly getting to a point where there's a kind of it will affect people's jobs. But I think I'm trying to remain optimistic and say it's not going to replace people's jobs. It's going to make them better by giving them information, predictive capability, doing the grunt stuff, matching the invoices, looking at the tolerances, all of that stuff, doing that for people so that they can be freed up to analyze what is a good customer, what is a bad customer, things like that. I'm going to try to remain optimistic in that, people that operate ERP systems inside companies are not going to be replaced anytime soon by that capability.
So that's a very interesting argument. And, one of the fascinating things that I personally did not predict, I guess, was that I didn't see that Google was going to be the first company, where we are going to see so many layoffs, Because in my mind, Google used to hire the smartest of the smartest. If they are being replaced, then, everybody is sort of replaceable, I guess, in this world and age. But if you read between the lines in terms of what is happening at Google, they are replacing the majority of the procedural roles. And that's why I like to emphasize on the word procedural, which is going to be the majority of the sales and marketing roles. They are being replaced. And, I don't think you can replace a B2B salesperson because when you are going to have $1 million deal, I don't think anybody is going to interact with a bot. So the customer experience is going to become far more important. But where the jobs are being replaced or people are being replaced are going to be in roles that were very consumerized in nature. So when I say consumerized, meaning, let's say if you're selling Google Ads. Now, if you're not necessarily getting ROI from Google Ads, you have a person who is actually supporting you. And, there were a lot of businesses that were getting a lot of support from Google, but, now they are trying to justify the ROI as well. that should we invest in these people or should we hire more people who are going to do the AI and they are probably going to improve the conversion rate, okay? Because that's where the real power is of AI. Because even if you look at today in 2024, the way Google operated, it wasn't very intelligent, to be completely honest, okay? Now with AI, it's going to be far more intelligent in matching your sellers and buyers. That was the role that Google has, played all the time, right? So that's how I am seeing AI, I guess, in terms of the job replacement. I don't know. I mean, if you have any other comments there.
I mean, I think you're right. It's kind of ironic in the sense that the jobs that are going to be replaced, some of them are developers.
Exactly.
So they developed AI and they're replacing themselves.
Exactly.
Which is kind of ironic. And that's why you might see some, a lot of layoffs at a Google or other technology companies, because if AI can write code better than you can, then I guess you don't need the coder, which is a scary thing in a way. But no, I think just in terms of ERP, just bringing it back to ERP, I think Google was a good choice for Vandenberg when they chose, here we're going to use, what tools are we going to use? Kubernetes, big data, and Google Cloud, because I think it's more general, and the AI capability that they have is very interesting. It wasn't the first on the market, but it's very interesting and supposedly very good. And they wrap that into their tool. So in addition to them using that rapid application development tool, they also incorporated AI into that. So I think that's very interesting that they chose Google Cloud.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I don't know if you want to cover some more questions from the community. I guess that was the intent of the segment.
Oh yeah. Okay, so let's see. How about what consideration should a company? Yeah, I'm tired of the AI stuff.
Too much AI
so many
in
AI
one episode.
All right. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna skip some AI stuff. Let's see. What's one question or consideration you wish more end users would have before implementing an ERP?
So what consideration? Is that the question again? What considerations, right? Okay, considerations. Interesting question. Okay. I would say appreciating. Okay. I would summarize that in one word, which is going to be just appreciate the process. Listen very closely why it is so difficult. Don't believe in dreams. They don't work, especially with ERPs. Okay. So if somebody says that this is really difficult, that is really difficult, and you need to figure out a plan at the field level, and I'm being really serious here, whenever you are building any sort of plan, it needs to be very detailed and comprehensive, because you have no idea how difficult this is and how much effort any ERP implementation is going to require and how disruptive that could be for a company. So I don't know. I mean, see, that's what I would say, that appreciate the process. Do very thorough due diligence, really research into it. Okay. And don't follow the noise. I guess internet is full of noise. We all know this, right? But, listen to people who sort of know what they are talking about. I mean, that's how I would put it. In terms of the expertise, the more details that you can find, the more you can appreciate the process is probably better. So that's what I'm going to give. Then I don't know if you have any other consideration that you would like to touch on this question.
Yeah, I do have a couple things. One is I would do a very thorough job at identifying the KPIs of the business and tying them to the implementation, meaning having the system, whatever combination of dashboards, applications, ERP systems, whatever, configuring those systems to get those KPIs that allow you to measure the business in the proper way. And also for those business indicators, those
Yep.
KPIs, identify the proper, business processes to support those, and make sure that those are modeled and in place in the system.
Okay, amazing. So I think,
What would you say?
no, great. I think we are close to our time now. So I don't know, Dan, you are going to have your closing speech, as well as what to expect from this show, I guess.
Okay, my closing speech. I have a new job.
Congratulations.
So I am starting as of yesterday. I am the director of North America for Partners to Innovate, which is a new company that has a lot of old friends, a lot of ex-Bond, a lot of ex-Infor, and a lot of ex-Marino people in it. And I'm just really excited to build the North American practice. So we specialize in Infor ERP implementations, and also all the digital transformation and change management and things like that go with it. But that's more your specialty. We're more the nuts and bolts guys on the ERP implementations. And then we're going to be making a lot of partnerships coming up. I mentioned Vandenberg. There's a number of other partnerships that I'm working on. So I'm just super excited about
And I'm
it.
super excited for you as well. And guys, if you want to find us, Elevate IQ, WBS Rocks are two different brands. If you Google Sen Gupta, you can find me. So Dan, over to you again if you want to provide your contact information, and then what to expect from this show maybe in 2 weeks.
Sure, yeah. So I'm on LinkedIn, obviously. Our company is P2, the number 2, -innovate.com. So there's the website there. And also we have a LinkedIn page, and it's being fleshed out, and a lot more announcements coming on that.
Okay, amazing. So Dan, we are going to come back, I guess, in 2 weeks, for this show. And this is going to have very similar structure that we followed in this one. So stay tuned. Any other closing thoughts, Dan, before we close?
No, thank you, sir.
Of course. Thank you so much, everyone.